Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're taking a look at something that one of you requested, and it's pretty cutting-edge stuff.
Yeah.
Glucose-sensitive insulin? Remember that paper you sent in about NNC 2215?
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to break down what makes this new insulin conjugate so revolutionary.
Right.
And what it could mean for people managing diabetes.
Absolutely.
I mean, get this.
Yeah.
We're talking about insulin that has like a built-in switch.
Yeah.
Plus, there's a surprising link to this protein called albumin.
Yeah.
And get this, the scientists are using mirror image glucose to test it.
Very cool.
So let's dive in.
So one of the things about this new NNC 2215 that's really fascinating is that it could address this problem that's been plaguing insulin therapy for decades.
So for anyone who isn't too familiar with diabetes,
Right.
can you give us like a quick rundown of why this is such a big deal?
Sure thing. So people with diabetes have to constantly monitor their blood sugar and then adjust their insulin to match. It's really a delicate balancing act.
Okay.
And even a tiny miscalculation can lead to hypoglycemia.
And that's when blood glucose drops too low, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard it can be really dangerous.
It can be.
What happens?
Well, you get dizziness,
Uh-huh.
confusion, even seizures in like really severe cases.
Oh, wow. So that sounds pretty scary.
It can be. And because it is scary, it often leads people to take less insulin than they need.
Oh, I see.
You know, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, to err on the side of caution.
Exactly. But the problem is that can lead to long-term complications from having high blood sugar.
Right. So it's like a catch-22.
Absolutely.
So is this new glucose-sensitive insulin, is that kind of like a safety net then?
That's the idea.
Okay.
The idea is to have an insulin that can automatically adjust based on what your glucose levels are doing.
So it's like smart insulin.
Right. Scientists have been trying to make this work for decades,
Oh, wow.
but it's proven to be really hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. Why is it so difficult?
Well, you need a system that's incredibly sensitive
Yeah.
and responsive
Right.
to these tiny fluctuations in blood glucose.
Uh-huh.
And previous attempts just haven't been able to nail it.
Okay.
That really rapid, reversible response.
Gotcha. So what makes NNC 2215 different?
Well, a couple of key things.
Okay.
First, NNC 2215 has this unique switch mechanism built into the insulin molecule.
Right into the molecule.
Yeah, and it's very responsive
Okay.
to glucose
Uh-huh.
within that range that's really important
Okay.
for diabetes.
So it's like the insulin can think for itself.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Wow. So how does this switch actually work?
So it's made up of two main parts,
Okay.
a glucose-binding macrocycle
Uh-huh.
and a glucoside.
Okay.
And both of those are attached to the insulin molecule.
Okay.
So as glucose levels increase,
Yeah.
this switch opens,
Okay.
which lets the NNC 2215 bind to insulin receptors and lower the blood sugar.
So when glucose is high, the switch opens.
That's right. But then when the glucose levels drop, the switch closes,
Right.
which prevents the insulin from being too active.
So it's kind of like a safety,
Yeah,
like a guard against hypoglycemia.
exactly.
It's constantly monitoring and adjusting,
That's right.
and it's reversible.
Yes, unlike some previous attempts.
Okay.
This one's very sensitive.
All this talk about molecular switches, is there like any visual that could help us understand this better?
Well, the researchers actually created 3D models
Oh, wow.
to show the switch in its open and closed states.
Okay.
And they clearly show how when the switch is closed,
Yeah.
the insulin can't bind to its receptor.
Ah.
So that basically turns its activity down.
That's incredible. Science is really mind-blowing.
Uh-huh.
But I gotta ask, did they just test this in a lab?
Wow.
Or did they see if it worked in, like, living creatures?
They went beyond the test tubes.
Yeah.
They actually did several studies in animals.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's hear about these animal studies. What kind of animals did they use?
They used rat
Okay.
and pigs, which are both really good models for studying diabetes.
Gotcha. And what did they find?
Well, they tested the NNC 2215 in a bunch of different scenarios
Okay.
to see how it handled preventing those lows,
Uh-huh.
but also managing those spikes in blood sugar after eating.
Okay, so did it work?
The results were really encouraging.
Oh, tell me more.
So in all the studies, the NNC 2215 outperformed standard insulin
Okay.
consistently
Interesting. In what ways?
while preventing hypoglycemia
Okay.
and keeping blood sugar levels stable.
Really?
It was remarkable.
That's great news. So from molecules to cells to living animals,
Exactly.
this new insulin conjugate is showing a lot of promise.
Yeah.
But what about in humans?
Yeah.
How do we know if it's going to work the same way in people?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And that's where the researchers got even more clever.
Oh, really? How?
Well, they took all the data from the animal studies and built a mathematical model.
A mathematical model. So they're trying to predict the future
Pretty much.
of diabetes treatment.
Yeah.
So it's like they have a crystal ball.
Yeah, you could say that.
That's so cool. What did the crystal ball tell them?
Well, the model suggests that NNC-2215 could be very effective in humans.
Wow.
Which really supports the idea that this could be a big breakthrough.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like this new insulin conjugate really could be a game changer.
It really could, but we have to remember that these findings are still preliminary.
Right.
We need a lot more research,
Uh-huh.
especially clinical trials in humans.
Right. We need to test it in people.
To confirm these results
Wow.
and really understand the potential.
Yeah, of course, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
But it's exciting.
It is.
What's next for NNC-2215?
Well, the next big step is to get it into human trials.
Right.
To see how it works in people who are living with diabetes.
Right.
That'll be the real test.
And if those trials are successful, how long until we might see this actually happen?
Well, it's tough to say.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of urgency around finding better diabetes treatments.
Okay.
And there's a lot of excitement about this one.
Yeah.
So it could be accelerated.
So we could see this happen in our lifetimes.
Yeah, potentially in the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow. That would be incredible.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot today.
We have.
About the science
Uh-huh.
behind NNC-2215.
Right.
How it works.
Yeah.
How it performed in animals.
Right.
But you mentioned earlier there was this intriguing detail about albumin.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Well, albumin's this protein found in our blood, and the researchers found that it seems to actually enhance the sensitivity of NNC-2215.
Oh, wow. So it's like albumin is helping the insulin do its job?
That's a great way to put it.
That's amazing. It's like a little helper.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It shows how complex this system really is and how everything interacts.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive.
It has.
Into NNC-2215.
Yeah.
We've explored its unique mechanism, its performance in the animal studies, and we even got a sneak peek at what the future might hold with that mathematical model.
We did.
It's really a picture of hope for people living with diabetes.
Absolutely. Imagine a world where you don't have to worry about hypoglycemia.
Yeah.
A world where diabetes management isn't so demanding.
That's amazing.
And restrictive.
That's a powerful thought.
Yeah. But of course, with any new medical treatment, there are going to be challenges and questions.
Of course. What are some of those?
Well, one hurdle could be how complex it is to make this drug.
Okay.
You know, with such a fancy design, that often means higher costs.
The classic dilemma.
Right.
Groundbreaking treatment.
Yeah.
But maybe not everyone can afford it.
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
But history shows us that as new technologies develop, production gets more efficient. And then the prices come down.
Right. It's just a matter of time.
Exactly, and investment.
And I guess the other big thing is that we need more research.
No, absolutely.
Right. Especially those human trials. Yeah. To confirm all these amazing findings.
Right.
And to find out if there are any long-term risks.
Exactly. Cautious optimism is key here.
Right.
We can be excited, but we also have to acknowledge that we still have a lot to learn.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So what's next for NNC-2215?
Well, the next big step is getting those human trials underway.
Okay.
That's where we're really going to see how it performs for people.
Right, in real life.
Yeah.
And if those trials are successful, how long before this could become like a real treatment option?
It's hard to give a timeline.
Yeah.
But I think we could potentially see it become available within the next decade.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
It's not often that we see something that could totally change how we approach a disease.
So to wrap things up,
we've
learned about this new insulin, NNC-2215, with this built-in switch that makes it responsive to glucose levels.
Yeah, right.
So maybe we can say goodbye to hypoglycemia.
Potentially.
We've also seen how well it did in animals.
Yeah.
And that mathematical model was pretty encouraging.
It was.
And we've even thought about how this might change things in the future.
If it works out.
If it works out.
That would be great. It'd be less burdensome and more empowering.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about. And before we go, I'd like to leave you with this.
Okay.
Imagine that future where diabetes doesn't mean constantly worrying about low blood sugar.
Yeah.
How might that change people's lives?
Right.
How might it change healthcare?
Yeah.
And even society?
That's a great question.
It is. It's worth thinking about.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
On this deep dive into glucose-sensitive insulin.
It's been a pleasure.
It really has. Until next time. See ya. Welcome back. So, as we were looking through this research on NNC 2215, one of the things that really stuck out to me was how the scientists used this mirror image glucose, L-glucose,
right,
in their rat studies.
Yeah, that's really clever.
The NNC 2215 could understand.
Right, because regular glucose would trigger the body's natural insulin response.
Right, exactly.
But this L-glucose only activates the NNC 2215.
That's right.
So it's like they could really isolate and see how it was behaving.
Exactly. It lets them see the drug's effects without all the other stuff going on.
Oh, that's really smart. So what did they learn from these experiments?
Well, they found that the rats' blood glucose levels dropped in direct relation to how much L-glucose they received.
So more L-glucose.
Yeah.
More activation of the NNC 2215.
Exact.
More glucose cleared from the blood.
That's right. Really shows that the switch is working.
Right. Proof of concept.
Exactly.
But those were healthy rats, right?
Right, yeah.
What about animals that actually had diabetes?
So to really test it in a diabetic setting, they used pigs.
Pigs?
Yeah, pigs actually have a physiology that's quite similar to humans.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which makes them a good model for studying diabetes.
So did they give these pigs diabetes?
Not exactly. They used a technique to temporarily suppress the pig's own insulin production.
So they basically induced a diabetic state?
Yeah, you could say that.
Interesting. So they created like a controlled environment to really observe what was happening.
Exactly. And they compared the NNC 2215 to a standard long-acting insulin.
Gotcha.
They stopped giving the pigs glucose and then watched what happened. So with the standard insulin, the blood glucose plummeted.
As you'd expect.
Yeah, but with NNC 2215, the decline was much more gradual.
Oh, so it's like a buffer preventing that rapid crash.
Exactly, as if the NNC 2215 was sensing the dropping glucose levels. Wow.
And adjusting its activity.
And this happened consistently.
Yeah, across different doses.
That's really impressive. So we've seen it work in healthy rats.
Right.
And protect against hypoglycemia in pigs.
Mm-hmm.
What else did they test?
Well, the next challenge was to see how the NNC 2215 handled those blood sugar spikes that happen after you eat.
Right, because that's a big problem for people with diabetes, right?
Yeah, it can be really tough to manage.
Yeah.
So for this, they went back to the rats.
Okay.
But this time, diabetic rats.
Oh, so now we're really getting into a real-life scenario.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they found that the rats that got the NNC 2215 had much smaller blood sugar spikes compared to the ones who got regular insulin.
So it's like the NNC 2215 anticipated the glucose and was ready for it.
It's like it ramped up its activity just enough to compensate.
Wow. So not only does it protect against the lows,
right,
it also handles those highs after meals.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, it seems like this could really simplify diabetes management.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, less to worry about.
Right. And potentially people could get better blood sugar control. With lower doses of insulin overall?
That's great. So less risk of highs and lows.
Exactly.
But all this talk about rats and pigs is fascinating. But what does it mean for humans?
Right. Well, remember how we talked about the researchers using a mathematical model?
Yes. To predict how it might work in people?
Exactly. They took all the data from the animal studies and built a virtual simulation of how the drug might behave in the human body.
So they're basically giving it a test run?
Yeah.
In a virtual human?
Pretty much.
That's so cool. And what did this virtual test tell them?
Well, the model suggested that NNC 2215 could be really beneficial for people.
Oh, wow.
Which supports the idea that this could be a big step forward in treatment.
That's really exciting.
It is.
It gives us a lot to be hopeful for.
It does, but of course we still need to do those human trials.
Right, of course.
To confirm everything.
Yeah, we can't get ahead of ourselves.
Right, but these findings are really encouraging.
Yeah, from the molecules all the way to the animal.
Exactly. It's a good sign.
It sounds like we've learned a lot.
We have.
About how this NNC 2215 works. But earlier you mentioned that there was this interesting detail about albumin.
Oh.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So albumin is this protein.
Yeah.
It's found in our blood. And the researchers found that it seems to enhance the sensitivity of NNC 2215 to glucose.
Oh, wow. So it's like albumin is helping the insulin work better.
That's a great way to put it.
That's really interesting.
It's like a little helper.
Yeah, it really highlights how complex this whole system is.
It does, and how all these different parts interact.
This has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
We've learned about this amazing mechanism, how well it performed in the animals, and even got a sneak peek at what the future might hold.
With that virtual model.
It really does paint a picture of hope for people living with diabetes.
It does. Imagine a world where you don't have to worry about hypoglycemia all the time.
Yeah.
Where managing your diabetes isn't so demanding and restrictive.
That's a powerful thought.
It is. But of course, like with any new treatment, there are going to be challenges.
Of course. What are some of the challenges?
Well, one hurdle could be just how complex it is to make this drug.
Yeah, with such a sophisticated design.
Exactly. And that could mean higher costs.
Right. That's always the issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Groundbreaking treatment.
Yeah.
But then not everyone can afford it.
That's a valid concern. But, history has shown us that as these technologies mature, production gets more efficient.
Right.
And then prices come down.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
Exactly. And investment.
And I guess the other big thing is we need more research.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially those human trials to confirm these findings.
Yes. And to see if there are any long-term risks.
Right. So cautious optimism is key here.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
We can be excited.
Yeah.
But also acknowledge that there's still a lot we don't know.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So what's next for NNC 2215?
Well, the next big step is getting those human trials going.
Okay.
To see how it works in people who are actually living with diabetes.
Yeah, that's the real test.
It is.
And if those trials are successful, how long until this could actually be a treatment option?
It's tough to give an exact timeline.
Yeah.
But I think with how much attention this is getting and how important it is to find better treatments, it could happen faster than usual.
So we could see this happen in our lifetime?
Yeah, potentially. We could see it become available within the next decade.
Wow, that would be amazing.
It would, yeah. It's not often that we see something that has the potential to completely change how we approach a disease.
Well, this has been a really interesting journey. We've explored the science, the animal studies, that amazing mathematical model.
Yeah.
It really does give us hope.
It does.
For the future of diabetes care.
Imagine a world where you don't have to constantly worry about low blood sugar.
Yeah.
A world where managing your diabetes isn't so demanding and restrictive.
That's a powerful image.
It is, but of course, like with any new medical breakthrough,
of course,
there are going to be questions and challenges.
Right. What are some of those?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles could be the complexity of actually manufacturing this drug.
Right.
With its unique design.
Right. And that often translates to higher costs.
Yeah, it's that classic dilemma, the groundbreaking treatment.
But not everyone can access it.
Exactly. But we've seen this happen before with new technologies. As things progress, production gets more efficient.
Right.
And the prices come down.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time and investment.
Exactly.
And I guess the other big thing is we need more research.
Absolutely.
Especially those human trials.
Yes.
To confirm these exciting findings and to see if there are any long-term risks.
Right. So cautious optimism is key.
I like that phrase.
We can be excited about the potential,
yeah,
but we also need to acknowledge that we still have a lot to learn.
That's a great point. So what's next for NNC 2215?
The next big step is to start those human trials.
Okay.
To see how it performs in people living with diabetes.
Right, the real-world test.
Exactly.
And if those trials are successful, how long until we might see this revolution in diabetes care become a reality?
It's tough to give a definite timeline.
Yeah.
But given the urgency around finding better diabetes treatments and all the excitement surrounding NNC 2215, I think things could move pretty quickly.
So we could potentially see it become available within the next decade.
Now, that would be incredible.
It would. Yeah, it's not every day that we come across something that has the potential to completely change how we approach a disease.
So to sum it all up,
we've learned about this amazing new insulin NNC 2215 with its built-in switch.
Yeah.
That makes it responsive to glucose levels.
Right.
And potentially eliminates the risk of hypoglycemia.
It's a big possibility.
We've seen how well it did in those animal studies.
Yeah, those are really impressive.
And we've even discussed the predictions from that mathematical model.
Right, which were very encouraging.
And we've even thought about the broader implications.
Yeah.
And what this could mean for the future of diabetes care.
It's a lot to consider.
It is.
And before we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Imagine that future where diabetes doesn't mean constantly worrying about low blood sugar.
Yeah.
How might that change the lives of people living with this condition?
Yeah.
How might it change our healthcare systems and even our society as a whole?
That's a great question.
It is a question worth thinking about.
It is. Well, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
On this deep dive into the fascinating world of glucose-sensitive insulin.
It's been a pleasure.
It really has. Until next time.
See you then. Welcome back to our deep dive on NNC 2215. We've really gotten into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, we have.
The science, the animal studies, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
But now I want to zoom out.
Okay.
Talk big picture.
Sounds good.
What could this new insulin actually mean for the future of diabetes care?
Well, if all this pans out,
Yeah.
NNC 2215 really could change everything.
In what way?
Well, imagine no more fear of hypoglycemia.
Right. That's huge for so many people.
It is. It's a huge burden.
Yeah. I can only imagine constantly worrying about your blood sugar crashing.
Yeah.
Like waking up in the middle of the night.
Exactly. Or having to check it all the time when you're exercising.
Yeah, I can see how that would be freeing.
It would give people so much more confidence.
Yeah, to like actually live their lives.
Right, to be more active.
Yeah.
To adjust their insulin.
Without that fear.
Exactly, without always second-guessing themselves.
It's like taking off the training wheels.
Yeah.
It's about empowering people to take charge of their own health.
And not just for individuals.
Right.
Think about the healthcare system.
Oh, yeah.
Fewer ER visits.
Less strain on resources.
Lower costs overall.
Exactly. It's win-win.
But no treatment is perfect.
Right. There's always another side to the coin.
So what are some potential downsides or challenges?
Well, one thing to think about is how complex this drug is to manufacture. With that fancy molecular design.
Right.
That could mean it's really expensive.
Yeah, that's always the worry, isn't it?
It is. It's the classic dilemma.
Groundbreaking treatment.
Yep.
But then no one can afford it.
It's a valid concern.
But hasn't that happened before?
Oh, yeah, many times.
With new technologies.
Right, as things develop,
Yeah.
production gets smoother,
Right.
more efficient, and then the prices come down.
Okay. So maybe there's hope.
There's always hope.
It's just a matter of time.
And
I guess the other thing, we
Yeah.
need more research
Of course we need those human trials.
to make sure it's safe.
Exactly, and to see if there are any long-term effects.
Right, so cautious optimism.
Absolutely the best approach.
Yeah, we can be excited,
Well, sure.
but also realistic.
Right. Acknowledge that we still have a lot to learn.
So what happens now with NNC 2215?
Well, the next big step is to get those human trials going.
Okay.
To see how it works in people who actually have diabetes.
Right, the real-world test.
Exactly.
And if those trials are successful, how long before we might actually see this become a treatment option?
It's hard to say for sure,
Yeah.
but given how much attention this is getting
Yeah.
and the urgency to find better treatments,
Right.
I think it could be sooner than we think.
So maybe within the next decade.
It's possible.
Wow, that would be incredible.
It would, yeah. It's not often that we come across something like this.
Something that could completely change how we approach a disease.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a truly fascinating journey,
It has been.
exploring the world of glucose-sensitive insulin,
We've gone from molecules to models
to maybe even a future,
where diabetes is less scary,
less burdensome.
less life-limiting.
And before we go,
Yeah.
I want to echo what you said earlier
Okay.
about that future.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where diabetes doesn't mean living in fear of low blood sugar.
Right.
How would that change people's lives?
Yeah, think about it.
Think about the ripple effects.
On healthcare, on society as a whole.
It's really a question worth pondering.
It is.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive
It's been a pleasure.
into the fascinating world of glucose-sensitive insulin and NNC 2215.
Until next time.
Stay curious, everyone.